Hello, thank you for tuning in to my official YouTube channel. I am Reverend MeeLing, also known as Reverend Susan MeeLing, also known as Susan MeeLing, also known as Lady MeeLing, and also known as Lady Dori Belle, among a few others. I'm going to continue on reference to finding the silver lining and give a better context of such. So I'm going to continue from that particular page to that page and that. So in reference to John, that was my company commander and medical hold unit. So I had a head injury on Palm Sunday in 2000. And that was during basic training. And I had gotten an Article 15 from Captain Beer. And that was because of a rave that I had gone to with a bunch of people, some that were in the Army branch of the United States of America's Armed Forces, on the same floor as the barrack room that I had. And then some civilians that they knew. And we had gotten our tickets from, I think it was Planet K. I didn't know that that was contraband and illegal to go to. That wasn't explained to me. I purchased the CD. It had golden lobster claws. And that also was on the ticket for the rave that was in Austin. And that was at Brackenridge that I was taken to be hospitalized. Because at the rave, or on the way to the rave, I had not known to take my medications with me. I deal with not just the headaches and migraines, but I also deal with memory deficits and cognitive disorders. I went from college algebra with trigonometry and calculus to second grade math. And the guys that were in the military that took me, along with the civilians, they were driving a blue van, a darker blue van, and I think it was a GMC if I'm not mistaken. That being said, it could have been another model. I had the pain level went from a headache to a migraine. And it was about halfway to Austin. And they weren't going to turn around, so I asked if anybody had any pain medication to help. And they had... one female had said, she went by Princess Jasmine. She's a dirty blonde female, about my height, broader shoulders, and she had been married to a police officer. The apartment that they lived in, somewhere near Fort Sam Houston, there was a wooden fence on the other side of the wrought iron gate for the apartment complex that she lived in. It's darker brown. And on the other side was a house, I think, housing unit or housing neighborhood to that particular location. And in the van, she had said that she had Advil to help me with my pain. Looked like Advil. It had the candy color coating, the brown with the word Advil on it. And I know it was the candy coating because I had tasted it because there was no water in the car. Point being, during the actual rave, my headache pain had not calmed down. And so they gave me these, it looked like Flintstone chewable vitamins. but they were in the shape of tulips, and they tasted like grape. And so had those, and then I woke up at, as I found out later, in Brackenridge Hospital. And then my first sergeant had taken me back to Fort Sam Houston. I got a blood work done, and there was quite a bit of stuff in my system. And a lot of the soldiers were surprised that I had survived because of the amount of medication. Well, I shouldn't say medications. There was like LSD and heroin and PCP and just like all these different stuff. And the one of the sergeants had said that he was surprised that I was alive because in one of the multitude was enough to put down an adult elephant. And so me surviving that was just unbelievable for a lot of individuals. Well, I got an Article 15 for that because I didn't know I couldn't go to a rave, and I didn't know that I couldn't ask for Advil, and I didn't know that I couldn't go to that. That wasn't explained to me. And I didn't read about that before my head injury on Palm Sunday in 2000. I doubt that would have been what in anything I'd read. So I got an Article 15. Captain Morning took over from Captain Beer, although Captain Morning was a second lieutenant before he became a captain. And after a few talks, Captain Morning was just really just baffled as to why. And I was put on restriction until I could act like a soldier. My pay was docked 2/3 for 3 months. So put on extra duty for the amount of time. And then after a while, Captain Morning had said that he wanted to get to know me better. I was like, okay. And at first, I thought it meant like talking. And then he, wrote down, his cell phone number, his pager number, his home phone number, and the direct office phone number. And I had asked him, isn't that considered fraternization? And he looked at me and said, no, you don't need to worry about that. I was like, okay. And then he gave me a direct order that I was not allowed to speak with permanent party because I didn't finish basic training, which meant I was technically a student. And the next direct order was I couldn't talk with students because I was technically permanent party because I was a medical hold unit. And I couldn't speak with civilians because I wasn't allowed to go off post. I was on restriction. And so I wasn't allowed to speak with anyone. And so that was his way of like, oh, we can be friends. And I was like, okay, but isn't that considered fraternization? He said, no, you don't need to worry about that. I mean, I don't know if it's really so much that I need to worry about that. However, okay. And I don't deny I had a crush on Captain Morning. Oh, I had a crush on it because he looked like Tom Cruise. And he's just so cute. and, I am the way I am. And so he had tried to tell me, Captain Morning, had tried to tell me that my idea as far as Marine Corps dress blues were not as good looking in comparison to the dress blues he had. I was like, no, Marine Corps dress blues are just, they're just so, they're just so, And I know I'm not the only one who and it's just a person. I know I'm not the only one that's like, hi, how you doing? But nonetheless, in that regard, Captain Morning had shown me pictures of him with a bunch of other tankers that had their dress blues on with the cavalry hats or cavalry covers. And I had told him that about when I had joined after the paperwork was signed where I was emancipated, how I was upset because I couldn't go infantry, I couldn't go cavalry, and then I was upset because I found out cavalry didn't ride horses anymore, and that apparently they were in tanks, and Captain Morning was like, yes, we're in tanks now. Well, why? What happened to the horses? And he was just, what did you just say? Horses! Giddy up. Giddy up. You know, horses. You, the horsey nose. And he's just, cavalry means tanks. The horses. There's a horsey. You just, no. There's no horses in cavalry. Yes, there are. I argued with the guy at the MEP station. Like, fine, you have your tanks. But horses. Duh. Cavalry. And he's just, yeah, no. It's not how that goes. Yes, it is. Horses. Anyway, it you know, had said, showed me the picture, and I was like, I mean, you guys look good. However, and I guesstimate in certain regards, this is probably a little ballsy, because in the company commander's office, as he's showing me the dress blues, and it wasn't disrespectful, it was just one of those, yeah, but Marine Corps dress blues are just, they just look so good. Like, I mean, you know, you guys look good, I'm not denying that, but Marine Corps dress blues, like, I could be all girly over that. And he got a little, that's Marine Corps dress blues. Not the only one who finds them. Just, good morning. And so, anyway, spoke with him on the phone a whole bunch of times, went to his office a whole bunch of times just to talk, just to speak with one another. He'd ask me questions, so on and so forth. There was a point in time where I actually had gone over to his apartment. And some of the guys at Fort Sam Houston had dropped me off over at his apartment. And that was when Captain Morning had said I wasn't allowed to speak with any military guys at that point in the different aspects. And so we talked for a little bit more, and then one day I texted him 831, and because, you know, through the pager, like I did that's the equivalent for those who don't know what pagers are. It was a it was a little itty bitty rectangle thing that he had, and, you know, from any phone you could call, whether cell phone or landline, and you could, after the beep, you punched in whatever number, and then they would call that. Well, I text messaged in this era sort of thing, but back then, at that time, had texted page, whatever, the number to my barracks room, and then 831. He called me back later and he goes, what does 831 mean? It's like, really? You don't know what 831 means? It's like, no, what does 831 mean? 8 words, or 8 letters, 3 words, 1 meaning. 8 letters, 3 words, 1 meaning. So from now on, you were to call me John. I think that that's not a good thing. No. This is a direct order. You are to call me John, and that's it. I don't think that's a good idea. No. I am a company commander. I am captain rank, blah, blah, blah. Direct order, call me John. Okay, and it took me a while. So the rest of the weekend, I called him John. It took me a while. And then on Monday, there were the company commanders from Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, Echo, and Foxtrot companies. And the one in charge of Charlie company was also in charge of Medical Hold Unit, which was John or Captain Morning. And then there was the brigade commander, the brand new one. And or maybe, I think it was the one that was retiring out. One or the other. Anyway, I walk into the orderly room area. Not to the actual orderly room, just the hallway of the orderly room area. And I see all of the shinies. Good morning, sirs. Good morning, ma'ams. Hi, John. Well, that brigade commander, a bunch of swear words. Those who have military experience understand. I'm in trouble. This is what went through my head. What'd I do wrong? Like, what did I do? And that brigade commander said, Private, what is your last name? And who, and I looking at him, I could tell he was doing what he could not to lose it. However, he wanted answers. So he had asked, who did you call John? Oh, right there. The one that keeps moving towards the back of the group of the company commanders. John. Good morning. Hi. Brigade commander turned around on a dime, and I know there are guys who know what I'm just. And so, why did you call Captain Morning John? Oh, because he gave me a direct order to. Oh, this is what the brigade commander did. Oh, he gave you a direct order to call him John? Uh-huh. Yeah, he did. He did. And why did he do that? Oh, because I'm not allowed to speak to any students or permanent party. So he told me that I was allowed to speak with him. Brigade commander looks back. Oh. How old are you? Oh, I'm 17. And why did you have to think about that? How are you in the Army at 17? Well, I fought to be emancipated. And so I graduated early. And I went to basic training, and I had a head injury on Palm Sunday. And then I woke up at Fort Sam Houston. That brigade commander, like his face started turning the color of my hair, and he got really, really angry. By a lot. And explained why I had to call him John. And then the brigade commander said, "Do you know what rank John is?" "Yes, he is a captain." And the brigade commander, I mean, he had a more Garar face than that type of, and looks back over at me and he's like, "Do you see what is on my collar?" "Uh-huh, yeah, I see birds. I learned that those are the rank of colonel." And did not explain at that point in time how I had learned that that was the rank of colonel. And so, yeah, there's a colonel. Yeah, I see them. I see those birds. Yep, I do. I see them. They're shiny. That was not the response that he was probably looking for. And so he very much informed me that the colonel rank is higher ranking than the captain rank. Oh. Okay. That was not the response I think that he was looking for. Nonetheless, he had informed me that he was a colonel, which meant that he was higher ranking than a captain, and that he was giving me a direct order to ignore the captain's direct order to call the captain Captain Morning and not John. Okay. That was not the response. And so that was that one. And so in regards to CDO, I had to learn like a lot of stuff because of the aspects of after my head injury on Palm Sunday in 2000. And CDO, I use that as like because of alphabetizing. It's technically OCD, but because of alphabetizing, I've had to take a lot of things into account. And so, I was constantly tested, not just by doctors at Fort Sam Houston and Brooke Army Medical Center at the time, but also a bunch of guys in medical hold unit, because a lot of them had a hard time believing that, I wasn't malingering. They thought that I was malingering and faking it. And I was like, no, I can't. I don't even, they thought that I would, and it was just, no, I deal with headaches and migraines. Like at that time, I didn't know that's what they were called. I just kept saying I have pain in my head. And as far as like the memory stuff, well, no, it just is what it was. And so they thought, just like a bunch of civilians, that I was faking. And it's like, no, I'm not faking. I get it's weird. I mean, I actually tried to be able to go back to basic training, and the doctors were like, no, you're... no. And so before essentially actually being in the civilian sector, there were so many things that I had to relearn and then not fully grasp it, and then wound up in the civilian sector. And well, then a bunch of stuff happened and a bunch of civilians didn't believe in regards to what I dealt with and deal with. And that was just with my headaches and migraines, memory deficits and cognitive disorders. having gone from college algebra with trigonometry and calculus to second grade math. And by the time, like, in the civilian sector, and having learned about my issues with technology in a bigger way, it was very difficult on top of all that for them to believe I have issues with technology. That, like, there were problems with certain things. And then there were a bunch of civilians that didn't believe that I couldn't remember and I couldn't, like, put stuff together to understand the way I understood some stuff before. And I remembered, I got made fun of, not by military guys. I mean, a couple military guys thought it was funny that when I was looking at the tower in the orderly room, where does the floppy disk go? And they're like, what? What do you mean floppy disk? Floppy disk. Like the floppy disk. And they were like, no, that's a CD-ROM. What is a CD-ROM? It's where a CD goes in there. So where's the floppy disk go? Why would you think the floppy disks are like this big? Because that's what I remember are the big floppy disks. Like, they're like this big. That's not going to fit in there. And there were several discussions. It took me years to remember not necessarily how many people had told me that floppy disks aren't around anymore. But it wasn't until being in Washington State that I learned, or at least remembered, that floppy disks went from, like, really big ones to little ones. And I don't remember that. And I don't remember whenever the aspects of this CD-ROM or whatever. And then technology moves so fast in regards to the changing stuff. It just, I already have a hard enough time dealing with, like, everyday stuff, remembering simple things. And so there were a bunch of civilians over the years, especially, who were like, no, you're just making that up. You're just faking it. No, I'm not. And, like, there were guys at, like, Geek Squad and that would get the laptops when I brought them in. And they're just like, so what's going on? I broke it and I don't know what I did here. Here you go. I don't know what I did, but here. And they never had to worry about, like, at least with me. So when it came to any time I went into Geek Squad, I was like, so I messed this up and I don't know what I did wrong. And I don't know how many times I'd been in Best Buy, just to get something, or conversely in Geek Squad to bring in what I broke, and heard people yelling at the Geek Squad guys. And it's like, yeah, like, you won't be going to Geek Squad if you knew what you did wrong. Like, that's all I would think, is just like, why are you being mean? You wouldn't be giving them your stuff if you knew. You don't have to be mean to them. Like, that was, I am the way I am. And so, anytime bringing in the stuff, here you go, I broke it. And, it shocked them a few times, not in, like, the electrical way, just one of those, you're not gonna, no, I don't know what I did wrong, but I know I did something wrong. And, well, what did you do? I pressed the power button. And so I think that's what I did wrong. Probably wasn't what it was that went wrong, but nonetheless, that was it. And by the first time I brought a laptop into Geek Squad, my biological mother was doing the updates and all that sort of stuff. So I was just, I thought it was my fault. I didn't know about the other stuff in that regard. And so it was just one of those, okay, here. I guess by technicalities, what I did wrong was I allowed my biological mother to work on my laptop, though it's a little late but nonetheless, in that regard. And so, in Washington State, and I had told people I cannot go above the Mason-Dixon line, like not like past a certain level because I can feel certain things. And oh, you're just over dramatic. No, I'm telling you, I know what I am feeling. And no, no, I'm telling you. And so, after essentially being in my house in Carrollton and setting everything up the way I had, I was made fun of because of how I set up my portions of the library. And, oh, why do you have to? Because I'm CDO, that's why. Because Cactus Jack, also known as Jeffrey Kirkendall Jr., was like, oh, do you really have to? Yes, I do have to alphabetize it. Get off my back. Leave me alone. And so he just complained and did what I don't care. But he just as similar to the aspects of the reference points of how he thought it was funny and made fun of me because I didn't know pop culture and movies and all that sort of stuff. He thought it was funny that I am as I am. So I alphabetized my books, and they were in sections. So I had like my, whichever books for each sections alphabetized, spiritual books, gardening books, so on and so forth, scuba diving books, and well, technically scuba diving, gardening, and then, or gardening, religion, spirituality, and scuba diving. And it ironically worked out because, scuba diving, you go down in the water. Gardening, being on land. Yeah, whichever way I organized it. Nonetheless, it all alphabetized. Oh, it might have been an E, as in like eclectic. So that might be why I was... Anyway, point being, they were alphabetized, and the only thing I was missing was the Dewey system. And I got made fun of for referencing the Dewey system. It's like, seriously? Can I just not be made fun of? So, that is where I'm going to end in that regard. But yeah, I did break a whole bunch of stuff. I broke laptops. I had a laptop catch on fire in my lap. There was a guy who lived in the same neighborhood in San Antonio as my house, and that laptop caught on fire. That had to do with me, ironically, feeling things, like when I had gotten my second Reiki attunement, and I had felt like, and this was not going on like the social media stuff the way ish now, and just, just feeling the energy, not the electrical stuff, though I did feel that as well, but like when reading certain things, or however it was in regards to that stuff, whatever I was looking at, and I was like, I just feel like that's a thing I need to do, like send out healing energy wherever it needs to go, to the different people who use the internet stuff. Healing. What's the word? What's the worst thing that could happen? Well, apparently the answer to that is the laptop can catch on fire in my lap. And so I had the patterns of the back piece of the laptop where the fan blades were in my thighs, because I was afraid to pick up the laptop to put on the patio table. I had thought it was because I was smoking like real cigarettes at that time in comparison to the e-cigarettes, and I had seen a piece of ash on the laptop. I think it was a compact laptop, and I went to, like any smoker that smokes real cigarettes knows, or cigars because of the ash, and that went in the flames and stuff like that. I was like, so I guess I'm not gonna, how do I, ooh, that's warm. That's warm. Yeah, can you? I mean, it's a good thing that the plastic didn't melt into like my flesh. So there's that. There's at least that plus that positive. Just and then, as soon as like it was done, being on fire, I picked it up and put it on the patio table, and then I dealt with some stuff. And so, I just did what I could as best as I could, and not that I had ever pretended to be great with that sort of stuff. It was just one of those, here, I don't know what I'm doing, here, like, I don't know what to do, so here. And I mean, there are plenty of times that I have called, and this is when, living on my own while taking care of my son and my daughter, where there were issues with the internet router or whatever. My son specifically would say, oh, there's this wrong. And so then I'd have to call in, and I don't know. And so then I started giving the warning of, I don't know how to do this stuff. And then, I had a head injury. And I would be, just be myself, be honest. And so it got to the point where it was like, okay, who can I have over to be like, hi, yeah, so this account stuff, here, I got someone for you to talk with here. It'll make your job easier here. I don't know what I'm doing here. And so and there have been plenty of people when I've called in that were like, oh, we get that a lot here. You are better than, and it's like, yeah, no, no, I'm really bad with technology. No. But that's really sweet of you to try to tell me that, but no. No. I'm really, 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 really bad with technology. And then, the times that I've had individuals that could be there to help and stuff like that, after about, half an hour, they're like, so you said you had somebody there with you? Yeah, here. Do you need anything? No, just, I'd like to speak. There you go. I try. But it's also that, holding the stuff, it's painful. Doing all that sort of stuff is painful to me. It truthfully is. It's not like, again, it's not as though I'm lying. It's the aspect of it's genuinely painful. And even using e-cigarettes is painful. However, I need to be calm by a lot. And without certain aspects, it's one of those, so I'm just gonna do what I can to doing what I can to, and so I still have things that I need to take care of, however, that's only one aspect. It's a big aspect. It really truthfully is. However, at the exact same time, it's also, a few other things, and that's a whole other ball of wax. So, you guys have a good one, and comment below, and like and share and subscribe to my official YouTube channel. Have a good one.